Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Disruption Talks, where we invite top experts to discuss digital acceleration, winning strategies, innovation, and scaling product. My name is Sabina, and I'm Senior UX Designer and Team Leader in Netguru. And I'm very excited because it's my first time hosting Disruption Talks. I'm very happy to be a part of this meeting because I'm a huge fan of the industry which we were talking about today, especially since it's one of the world's largest jewelry brand, and jewelry is so close to my heart. And I'm also very curious about designing user experience in the company which designs, manufactures, and sells hand finished jewelry that can be also personalized. And what is also interesting, before you buy, there is the opportunity to see, for example, how your bracelet will look like in details, and with all of these charms, colors, materials, size, etc. It's something that excites me a lot, and that's why I'm so happy that in this episode we have the pleasure of hosting Sandra Wdowiak, the experienced designer at Pandora. So let me guys introduce her with her own words. Sandra says, I'm a creative and passionate problem solver who loves to design with people, for people, and for greater goods. With five more years of more than 5 years of experience in the field of change and initiative management, community involvement, cultural transformations, operational excellence, service and user experience design, and recently more in deep in user interface design. Ladies and gentlemen, what an impressive experience. Please welcome Sandra to our stage. Sandra, it's great to have you here.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that great introduction. And hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I hope we are going to have some nice quality time today. So I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, pleasure is
Thank you,
all
Sabine.
ours. So let's start. I wonder, could we start with some short introduction about your role, your background, and actually just make 2 steps back in your career path? Because I know you used to work in the financial sector for several years. So tell us more about your past experience and what led you to your current role at Pandora.
Yes, I will be happy to do so. So, as you already heard in the introduction, I work as a user experience designer at Pandora currently. But to take few steps back, to start with, I think that design thinking, even though back then I didn't know that's a thing, that it has a name, and creativity was very close to my heart from like very, very early age. I am actually a technician in arts, and I specialized in visual advertisement. Then I also finalized studies of fashion design in Łódź, which is a city in Poland. And recently, I also studied a subject of UX design at IT University of Copenhagen, where I live currently. But weirdly enough, like this more creative background, I've managed to spend, actually, it's 9 years that I have of an experience in total, of my like professional experience. Um, that all of that basically was in finances. So recently I changed to Pandora. It was 4 months ago, but all the professional experience that I have is basically in finance industry. And during that time, I had a lot of different roles, which I actually see how they are making me a better designer today. So the roles I had were like, I don't know, I started with a customer service coordinator in a branch in one of the Polish banks. Then I moved on to become like account manager. in the same branch. Then I moved to a back office, so from branch to back office, but to another bank, one of the biggest, not even the biggest Nordic banks, which is Nordea. And I became a transition resource back then. So I was moving some processes from Nordic countries to Poland. And since I was super interested in like lean and operational excellence and like improvements and the whole culture of change around it, I become a operational excellence consultant. And then I was helping teams to optimize the way they work in various fields. And from there, like I started working more and more with change and improvements. And I've managed to move to a role that was called transformation lead / service designer. And that is where my main focus was to bring relevant people together, work together towards the same goal fast and like overcome challenges. That was really, really cool. And that is where I kind of discovered or rediscovered and reconnected with the whole design thinking, which was really great. And from there, I've made a switch to UX UI. So yeah, recently I moved to Pandora. As said, it was 4 months ago. So from finance to jewelry industry, as I felt like it was a good time for me to do that change. And since I really, really care about companies' purpose and values, after leaving Nordea, Pandora felt like the only choice, the only good choice for me. And here I can use all my past experiences, basically, to craft extraordinary designs. So that's
Yeah, that's
probably in
pretty
short.
cool. Yeah, yeah, and sounds impressive. And how easy or how difficult it was to turn your career into the jewelry industry? Any
I was.
challenges? Something that's make you surprised?
Yes, oh, for sure. I mean, there are some things that I was really surprised about. So, probably to start with, like the design thinking philosophy is the same. Like the way how we work with design is the same. So that is not a big surprise. However, there are some differences that I've noticed. So first of all, the people you work with, like their challenges. When I say the people, I mean customers. The way how they look at things, their mindsets, the needs and the problems they're facing are a little bit different in finance world and then in jewelry world. And that's one thing that definitely I can see is different. Then another maybe thing that I've observed would be, and that was very visible for me, would be regulations. So the bank industry and the finance industry, no wonder why, is very regulated. There's a lot of regulations and things you need to be aware of and take into account. And that is not the case that much. I mean, of course, there are some regulations and country-specific regulations in e-com as well, but it's not that heavily regulated as finance world. And another probably thing that I've noticed is also the development. So from my experience in banking, a lot of the time the development is happening in-house, while and then it's also taking quite some time. While in ecom, I feel like there's a lot of really great out-of-the-box solutions out there already, which is opening a lot of possibilities to partner up with some, external vendors and to use the knowledge that and experience they have already. So these were probably like, the differences I've realized. Yeah, but besides that, like I said, design community, it's very similar, right? It is a certain type of people that I work
Yeah,
with, no matter what the industry is. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Sounds familiar as well, because it's crucial to know users' needs to craft better solutions for the target group. And sometimes it doesn't matter what type of industry we work for. Most important is to understand people's behavior, their journey, pains, gains, etc. Yeah, and
Exactly.
Yeah. And how about your daily experience? What does a day in the life of an experienced designer in one of the hottest jewelry brand worldwide look like? I suppose it's amazing to work with the beautiful products loved by millions of people around the world, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is. It is. It is. I will probably not be that original here, and I would say that there's no day that looks the same. Each day is very
Yeah, I can
different.
imagine.
Yes, and I think what is the most cool about the job I'm having right now is the people that I work with and the people I met with. That is just great. There are some things that are similar every single day. I like to start my day with cup of coffee, and then also like reading my emails and looking at my calendar and what is ahead. So that is usually the way how I start my day. I open up the calendar and I'm checking out like, okay, so whom I'm with today, what are the working sessions we are going to have today, is there anything I need to read in advance, and so on. If it's Monday, I like to book things in advance, like to book some maybe focus time for myself and so on. So these are probably the rituals that I have every morning. And then after that, it really depends. It's so different what I do. Like I work with a digital product team, so we spend quite a lot of time either on online or on-site meetings, workshops, working sessions. Hence, sometimes I need to prepare to that. I need to, I don't know, prepare some things either in Figma, which is the design tool that I use, or in Miro, which is the tool that we use for online workshopping. Um, yeah, like there are really different things. Sometimes I will do some research. I will need to read something in advance. Yeah, so it really depends. But besides that, we
Yeah.
also have as a design team some rituals, and I'm pretty sure like for those who work in the field, probably you're very familiar with these. Like for example, we will have show and tell sessions where you can show the current designs we work on right now. We do have some team meetings, one-to-ones with design leads and so on. So that is also of course filling up the day. Yeah, so that
Yeah,
is
sounds
probably it.
yeah, sounds familiar. And I think coffee is always the best way to start the day. So yeah. Yeah, so digging deeply into your job, what's the focus on your current team? What
Hmm.
challenges are you facing currently? What are your important and crucial goals, KPIs, OKRs, or something like that?
Hmm. Yes. So probably you've noticed when I was saying that I work with a digital product team, but then I was also mentioning some rituals that I have with a design team. So like technically I belong to two teams. Like I'm employed in the design team with a lot of designers, but then of course I am part of a digital product team. So there are kind of two different focuses because of that. So with my digital product team, we focus on providing a personalized experience for Pandora customers and enabling Pandora store associates to offer these. So I also right now I work on a platform that is basically empowering store associates to provide seamless and personalized store experience towards the customers. So that is kind of the product that I work with. And of course, we have many like KPIs or OKRs that we are looking at. If you ask me, probably the one that is the most important from my perspective would be the NPS score, which is a Net Promoter Score for those that don't know. That is gathered both from Pandora employees, because we are talking store associates, but also from customers. So these would be the probably the two things I looked on. And I didn't catch, like, did you also ask like about the challenges are we facing? Did I
Yeah,
understood correctly?
about your focus in your current focus in
Mm-hmm.
your team now. What are you doing now?
Mm-hmm.
What make you challenge? And yeah, it's what is more important goals for
Mm.
you now?
Yes. So probably there is one challenge with the digital product team that we are facing right now, which is probably something that a lot can relate. Since the product we are working on is new, um, there is always this debate on uh, what to release first. I love to talk. Talk with people about that there's a difference between MVP and MLP. MVP being minimum viable product, and MLP being minimum lovable product. So we know that, of course, we cannot like launch everything at once. That would be probably very difficult to do. So how to prioritize functionalities and features in a way that our store associates will love the product, right? Even though it doesn't have everything in the first place. So that is probably the challenge we face. At the same time, we have really well-equipped team to take those decisions. But of course, it just takes time to like agree on what should go first, and then test that with people that we are aiming for, and so on, right? So that would be the digital product team. And then I also mentioned the design team. So in the design team, we have, of course, a lot of different activities as well. I recently teamed up with a few to basically work on the design thinking culture across Pandora. So to think of how can we create more understanding of a design thinking and promote more design thinking among people at Pandora, so that more and more people see and understand the value of that philosophy. And here, probably, I would say an interesting challenge we have is to find the right balance between theory and practice, and then also what goes into theory. I mean, people have different levels of understanding it, and some maybe worked with it more, maybe some less. So there is just a matter of finding the right balance.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds brilliant. And I think that sometimes design thinking sounds like a new trend, and people think that they all know a lot about design thinking in theory, but in practice sometimes is difficult. So I'm keeping my finger crossed for all your challenges, design thinking challenges, and your priorities, and also your goals. And I really can't wait to buy some pendant, bracelet, or something like that for myself, and make a gift maybe for my sister, who is completely jewelry addicted person as well. Maybe then I will share with my own experience from buying a piece of jewelry from your online shop. And I wonder, how do you work with the customers' insights, feedback? Because I read on Pandora's website that one of the Pandora's growth pillars specifying the company's strategy is design understood as creating customer-centric innovation. And according to Pandora corporate website, designs will be crafted by using robust consumer insights and strong creative expression to ensure the new product platforms became successful and at incremental volume. Pandora will use this insight to design for different needs and target group. And can you tell us how you and your team are using customer insight to craft better experience for Pandora customers? And actually, who exactly is your customer, your target group?
All right. Yes, let me try to break this question down.
Yeah.
And I will try to share as much as I can. I'm not sure how much I can share, but of course I will to the extent I believe it's possible. So I agree with the sentence with the sentence that you found. We do work a lot with the customer insights. I feel like gathering insights is something that we always do as part of the research activities, and research is always part of our design process. And at Pandora, we have access to both qualitative and quantitative data. And basically, we do have a lot of different dashboards and matrices that we can go into and see and read the data to understand better the patterns, the behaviors of our users. We can, for example, see how do people access our websites, where do they spend most time, where do they potentially drop off. And like this is something we have access to, and then based on that, of course, we can take certain actions. If we see that someone is like we see like there's a big amount of users that are stuck in a certain place, then that might be a good insight for us that we need to dig a little bit deeper into this one. Then another thing would be that we also gather new insights as part of the research work. So we do user tests, of course, especially when we are launching something like new features, or like we want to validate some of the designs. Then of course we do user tests to allow ourselves to gather data so that we can further iterate on this. And in my opinion, we do have a process when we always start from looking into like what data we already have, what is it telling us, what potentially are we missing, and then what would be ways to basically gather the missing data. And I also have some personal beliefs or statements here. I personally believe that it's super, super important to base your work on customer and user insights. That is very close to my heart. My belief is that if you don't do that, then you risk a lot. You risk that whatever you will launch is not what people actually need, or it's not really solving a real problem for them. And I also have those like opinions, like, design is not about what I think as a designer or the people I work with, like, I don't know, my product managers or delivery manager or other stakeholders that we have. It's not about what we actually think. It's about understanding who are our customers and solving a real problem for them, and then also exploring opportunities around their needs. And you cannot do that really without understanding the customers and having insights about them and who they are. And if you do that, then again, you are assuming. You're not doing it based on insights. And then I would just say it again, it's a risky business if
Yeah,
people do that.
agree.
And as said, like, we do have some really good data. We also have several reports based on research that was done in the past at Pandora, where we looked at analyzing a little bit who are our customers. So, for example, we have different mindsets that are being we have different mindsets that are being captured, like, for example, gifters, right? Like, we do have a lot of people that are not necessarily buying for themselves, but, for example, for others, right?
Yeah.
And then we will also have people that are purchaser, and then there are also like different kind of ways how they take decisions, how they buy a particular piece of jewelry, and so on and so forth. So we do have a little bit of a grouping here like that. But I would say like the main customer types that we looked at would be people that are gifters, self-purchasers, and then recipients. Because if you buy a gift for someone, then that person, a recipient, is also becoming our customer indirectly, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, and actually, I'd like to add something that about the research, because I also working. I also love working on customer insight, and can imagine that I don't have the access to the data, because it's always something that make your design decision easier when you know the customer's needs, they pains, they gains as well. It's just easier way to design something to actually help them. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. Let's back
Exactly.
to your target group, because one Pandora is the biggest jewelry company in the world. So I think that the diversity, the variety of your customers is so huge. And actually, I would like to know who exactly is your customer.
So Yeah, who is our customer? It is a very worldwide company, right? Like it's a very big company that I work for. So we do have different markets. As I told you, in particular in my digital product team, we are currently targeting our store associates. So the product that I am working on is basically is targeted towards store associates, and then they are working with customers. I would say it's a very interesting fact that we have such a worldwide company and we have a lot of different cultures, and that is making it a bit more exciting for sure. As we need to think of different customers and we need to think of understanding different customers differently. I can give you an example of what I talk about right now. So let's say we do have a market in China. And of course, then the customers in China are a little bit different, even though they're, again, like self-purchasers and gifters and recipients, they will be a bit different people, right? Because they are raised in China and they have a little bit different culture. So for example, like the solutions that we are working with in China will not necessarily work, for example, let's say in France, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Um,
it may be a challenge to work with different type of consumers, especially that they may have different needs, perspective, and context as well. And what I suppose to be the biggest challenge is the cultural diversity. How do you respond to different cultural preferences?
So yet again, we are trying to, of course, understand what are those differences. So whenever we are working on something, we would first think of like, is this, are we aiming to target all the markets that we are present in? And if we do, are there any differences between these? I think like big companies as Pandora and like other big companies, it's much easier if you can launch something that is more unified, that is something more global. But then you risk a lot that maybe this global solution wouldn't be necessarily fitting into the needs of the local markets. So then I think there is like a fair balance of what can we potentially customize based on knowing that, for example, on this market, it won't work, or this will work, or maybe there are different regulations in markets as well. So I guess it's just first of all understanding what are the differences, and then taking a decision how to respond to these. That would be probably my answer here.
Yeah. Okay. It sounds like it would be interesting. And in Netguru, we work in a multicultural environment as well with the companies from around the world. And sometimes we are surprised by a cultural variety. And it's amazing to meet people from different culture.
Oh
Uh,
yes.
yeah.
And Pandora, as such, is also like a very big company, multinational. So we also have like employees are also from all around the world, and that is making it, I suppose, more exciting even to work in an environment like that. So I can relate to
yeah.
that, Sabina.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And preparing myself for the meeting, I read the article in Reuters that said Pandora bets on Gen Z to boost
Hmm.
sales. And as I know, it's a 32% of global population, and it's a huge amount of huge part of the people. And I imagine that it could be huge share of the market. Is this something
Mm.
you see and experience in your everyday job when designing experience? Is the focus on younger generation changing the way
Hmm.
you design user experience?
Yeah. So I feel like I would probably say that in the product design, and product design being a jewelry, I feel like there was an impact created by Gen Z. So, for example, recently we've launched a completely new collection called Pandora Me that, in my personal opinion, meets the needs of the Gen Z in a very nice way. However, I cannot say in particular that in the designing digital user experiences, it's impacting like a lot. And of course, this is from my own experience. And please remember that I've joined Pandora 4 months ago. So I don't know if my colleagues would agree. But in my eyes, like in a good user experiences, there are some common rules and standards of a good experience. And I would say that no matter if you are from Gen Z or not, there are some common practices, for example, that aim to reduce cognitive load that are for all users, right? No matter their age. So I would say that maybe it's not impacting that much from where I stand. But of course, we are also thinking of all the users. We care of all our users, right?
Agree and understand it. But I think that it must be exciting experience working with young people, how they use and explore the internet, how they buy, choose the product, what are their values. And I think that in general they are tech savvy, and I suppose their experience and needs may be completely different from most people.
Yeah, for sure. But I would also say, like, we aim to create products that will meet the needs of all of our users, right? I mean, probably there's no such a thing that something that meets the needs of all the users. Probably there will be always something like it is meeting the needs more and less. But we need to remember that, Pandora is such a big company. We have so many customers across the globe with, different genders, cultures, age. So we somehow need to keep a balance. But at the same time, I feel like Pandora is really doing a good job, and my colleagues in the team and also in other product teams are doing a really great job thinking of like new ways of how can we make that digital experience better every time, like with the bracelet builder that you just mentioned, that you can create your own bracelets. Or I know that some of my colleagues were also working on features like you can take a picture of the hand and then see how, for example, the rings will look on your hand and how they stock up and so on. So we are trying to think of different ways that maybe this won't be that interesting for some, but more interesting for others, right? So again, I know it's it might be a cliche, but there is always the finding a right balance between new things and very tech savvy and more traditional presentation
It's
of products.
crucial, I think.
Yeah.
We have some questions on our chat, so let me ask the question by our CEO Marek Talarczyk. People ignore design that ignores people. What's your number one tip for the teams that had never worked with research customer feedback before?
Ooh, that's a good one. Let me, can I get a few seconds to reflect?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, my number one advice for people that never worked with research or customer feedback before. Okay, first of all, probably I would say just try. Just try. Probably because isn't it nice if someone gives something to you and asks for your opinion? Is it really useful for you or not? We can see on ourselves that when someone asks, we would like to contribute with feedback, with knowledge, with pointing out what is working and what is not working. And that goes for the whole, almost all humans like to do that. So I would say just try. If you never worked with that before, maybe it's time to try something new and just see, will that bring some benefits? I always say that we need to change and we need to try new stuff if we want to have a better results and if we want to, constantly adapt. And I guess we need to do that by trying new things, even when we need to go outside of our comfort zone. And it is worth it. I must tell you, it's so worth it. It's really worth to see, whenever you're working with something, to give it to someone and to hear what other thinks about it. A lot of people, when they start working with something, they will get attached to it very easily. They get into like, oh, I love this idea, patting their shoulder, like, I really did a good job, it's so amazing. And then you suddenly have these lenses of like not hearing, like it potentially is not the best solution. So when you're allowing yourself to give whatever you're working on to others, to get customer feedback, that can be an eye opener, and it can only have positive results on the end outcome. That was a long answer to the question. Sorry, I just build on top of my thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, I see another question about your approach. Which approach is closer to your heart, MVP or MLP?
To my heart, probably MLP, so minimum lovable product.
Why?
And it is because, like, I believe when you give something that people love, you immediately create a group of people that are excited about the product, and they will follow, and they will be, promoting it and so on, right? So probably that would be my answer. And then they will look forward to new features and new things that are coming through. Because if they love something, it means it's really, at the end of the day, it's really valuable for them if they love it. And, it is then solving some real problems for them. That would be, my 2 cents on this one.
Cool. So let's move now to your experience as a UX designer in this kind of industry. I mean, in retail brand, in comparison to your previous experience in the finance sector. How is UX designing in this finance sector different from designing it for a retail brand? Or is it different or not exactly?
Yeah, so as I was saying before, I feel like the philosophy and like the design thinking processes, that is not really different, right? And for example, the way we work, like if it's an agile methodology, like no matter what is the industry, there are certain ways of working you can apply, and they will be more or less the same. So it's not that different. But as I was saying, what is different is like the customers we are designing for. And I guess one of the thing I've noticed, also coming back to the previous point that I've made earlier, that a lot of development from my experience in finances is happening in-house comparing to jewelry e-com industry and a lot of partnerships. I feel like there are some differences in terms of, for example, time to market, like how fast we can develop stuff. And then also because in banking we are dealing with, so when you are designing, for example, I don't know, an app that is allowing you to buy stocks, or we are talking about your life savings, or, getting a loan for a home. It is like a big event that is involving money, right? So there is like really no space for mistakes, and it takes a lot of time to really make sure that whatever you're doing really, really, really works. And if that is happening in-house, sometimes it might mean that it will just take a little bit longer. So probably, that would be this from the experience that I'm seeing right now, that would be different. And because like when you're, for example, working with external vendors, then like the collaboration between, for example, the designer and the development team can also differ, right? At my previous work, I was super, super close with the developers. If you're watching me, guys, hello. We had almost daily calls together, which is possible, but maybe a bit more difficult if you work, for example, with external vendors. So there are some differences, right, coming from that fact. But in general, I would say like the ways of working are very, very similar.
Okay, so could you find something that just one thing that you think needs some improvements when you think about the experience design in in your current industry?
One thing that needs improvements. I mean, I feel like we are still exploring the digital world, and how can we make sure that the experience that you will, for example, get in store when you go and buy, how we can make sure that the experience online is as good as the one in store, or maybe even better. So potentially, it's not necessarily that this area needs improvements, but for sure it needs a bit more exploration, and probably thinking of how can we explore that space even further.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I think it goes not only for jewelry industry. I think that goes probably across fashion industry in general,
Mhm.
because there is something of like, if you go somewhere and like you try on particular piece, um, there is certain experience connected with touching, for example, the products and so on, and that is an interesting challenge. How can you make sure that the digital experience is giving you what you need as well? So
Yeah.
that would be
Yeah, but
probably.
yeah, on the other hand, I'm thinking about some benefits, and I wonder, what do you value the most in this field? What makes your experience design an interesting career choice for you?
Mm-hmm. I think what I value the most is probably the creativity around real problems, like the fact that you get to work with, or I get to work with different people with different experiences, different backgrounds, expertise, but yet we are all gathered around a shared challenge. And together we need to think of creative ways of how can we solve that challenge for our users and customers. I think that is really interesting, and that is pretty cool if you ask me. And that is probably what I value a lot in general in the design industry. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I see two similar questions on our chat
Mhm.
about shaping a career path, and Maria would like to know um, your advices, how to plan a career change and how to consider a new path in UX area.
Mm. So if someone is switching into the UX world from careers that maybe are not necessarily that connected with UX, then I would for sure advise to think of what kind of experiences you already have that can make you a better designer. Um, and the reason why I'm saying that, from my introduction, when I was saying like what different jobs I had in the past, like some of them, if you ask some people in the design space, they would probably say that had nothing to do with design. And I actually tend to disagree. I tend to think like I've learned a lot of different things from those roles that make me a better designer today. So if you are thinking of switching, then for sure I would advise you to talk to some other colleagues, reach out maybe through LinkedIn or other websites like ADP List website, to other designers, to get to know their story, to understand what it is that they are working on. To understand, do you really want to make a switch? That's the first thing, probably, I would like to say. Um, and then try to understand what is this role about, and what do you already have actually. Because as said, like if you have already some past experiences, I am then pretty sure you're already well equipped in certain areas to do the best job. And then there might be few things that you are missing that then you can focus on developing further. And now, because I had this chain of thought, I would like to come back to your previous question that you when you said like, is there anything that I would like to maybe change in the industry? But that is in connection with the design industry. I would probably say, or not necessarily design industry, but in general, when we work with designers, I feel like design is such a huge space. And if we take a second to think about design, in design you will have service designers, content writers, researchers, UX designer, UI designer, behavioral designers, um, design system experts, animation experts, like you name it. I know that this list is not,
Yeah.
exhausted. There are so many designers with so many different paths and expertise into the field. I feel like if I could change one thing, I would love to change the mindset of people that when they think designers, they only think of people that make things pretty, because that's not the case. We have way much to offer, and all of us actually can either be passionate or specialize in a different area of design, which again, the area is huge.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I
I
just
think that,
wanted to mention that. Mm.
yeah, yeah. I agree that there is a lot of opportunities to choose one of the path when it comes to design work, and I think that it's a common to follow the UX influencers and new technology newsletters, follow the patterns, etc. How about your hero? Who, as a
Mhm.
company or maybe individual, inspires you in terms of design? Where do you look for the best practices?
Mhm. Okay, so there are a few things probably I would like to say here. So when it comes to like a particular company and their app, I often look at Headspace. It's like a meditation app for those that don't know. I really love what they are doing in terms of their behavioral design, how they help you shape habits of meditation. I also love their content writing and the whole aesthetics of the app. I just really feel like when you open it, you know it's about meditation, and that's just beautiful. So I like to just open it from time to time, both for my like health, but while meditating, but also to get inspiration. When it comes to like a person, I like to follow Pablo Stanley. He is a designer and
Yeah, I
illustrator
love
at
him.
Blush.
Yes.
I really like him. I feel like he has such a unique style, and the way how he can convey the message, and also the way how he creates content to share is just great. So guys, if you don't know him, definitely go and check him out.
Yeah.
um yes, and then there is actually maybe a thing that I wanted to mention. So there is a time that I was following, like I was checking out Dribble and Behance quite a lot as well. Like I feel like that is a natural thing that a lot of designers is doing. However, that changed at some point, and it changed because I realized that there are certain trends in design, and I realized that it was more and more difficult for me to like sort out between like really good designs and maybe trends. And don't get me wrong, trends are not wrong, but sometimes the trends I observed were more about uh, a design that looks nice, but it's not that accessible, for example. And in my book, if something is not accessible, it's not a good design. So I realized that it was
Very
just
good
more
point.
difficult for me to see, is it a good design? So I prefer to like reach out to people and read cases and articles over looking at the static UIs. But I do have one more point to make right now. If you read articles as I do, please consider what is the value that you are getting from these articles towards the time that you are investing in it. There was a time that I was subscribing and following to a lot, and I mean a lot, and that had a negative impact on my self-confidence
Yeah.
because there's a lot of articles that you can read that are telling you like these are the 5 skills that you need to have to be a good designer, and this is like the 10 tools that you need to know for prototyping, and this is 5 techniques that you need to do, and you start being bombarded by this kind of content, and then you're like, I have 3 out of 5 skills, and from these tools I only know one. Does this mean that I am a bad designer?
Yeah.
No, no. But like, it's easy to have sometimes these doubts. So I would strongly recommend you guys to like reflect on what is the content you're following and what value is it giving, because it can be also like risky if it's too much. So my advice would be reflect on it, then start with few that you really like, and then you can expand. So right now, when I need some good UI practices, I would go to see like Apple or Google standards. If I need to research a bit more, some, for example, techniques, I would go to Interact Design Foundation. I sometimes go to Medium as well, but in Medium, again, it's like people that create content. So we also need to be quite skilled in terms of like figuring out how valuable this information is. And then lastly, just reach out to other people in the industry. People love to share good practices. So that's always valuable.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. There is also the questions about the
Mm-hmm.
design thinking philosophy by Renate. With
Mm-hmm.
the widespread of adoption of DT philosophy, where in which areas do you see a limitation?
I'm not fully sure if I completely understand the question in terms of limitations.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that
sometimes
I
I
fully
think that,
understand.
yeah, maybe I will help you and try to
Mm-hmm.
explain how I understand it, because sometimes I think that people think that they did the design thinking course and they are able to resolve all the challenges in their job. So I think that it's a just one step to
Mm-hmm.
think about designing the better solution, but it's for me um, a lot of tools to use when we design something, but it's not the one particular framework to work
Oh,
with.
yes. Oh, yes. Okay, now I get it. Yes, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. I feel like there's a lot of different frameworks and tools that we can combine. I once saw actually an article that was comparing different methodologies like design thinking and like other methodologies and philosophies out there. And what was interesting in that article was that very often the same kind of steps or things were named differently, but their outcome was supposed to be the same. So I kind of like, I like to combine different tools and frameworks together. And I don't like to follow only one thing, like, ooh, this is the only way of doing it.
Yeah,
But for sure, there are certain limitations, but it also depends on like what it is you are working on. That's probably like what I would really like to highlight. We should always look at, are there other ways of achieving the outcome, better ways? As you probably remember from my introduction, I also worked as an operational excellence consultant. So it was a lot about like lean management and operational excellence. So I also have in my toolbox a lot of tools from that world, and I use them constantly in my processes. So I feel like if you see certain limitations, it's still okay to go beyond and look for different tools as well to support you. Because for me, design thinking is more like a philosophy, like the way of like just thinking about problems and going through certain phases. But within those phases, you can use a lot of different tools. That's how I
yeah,
see it.
yeah, I
Mm.
agree absolutely with you. And there is also the question by Łukasz Bałdyga
Mhm.
about the collaboration between business analytics and UX designer. How to set the
Hmm.
boundaries between these two roles?
What an excellent question. And the only answer for me would be to have a conversation. Like, I do feel that often when we work on certain things, you will have different people with different ambitions, with different responsibilities, and with different things they know and different things they would like to learn. Um, we cannot like assume that all business analysts and or UX designers are the same. So I cannot tell you like how to set the boundaries, because in one case business analyst will be a completely different person than the other. So the only way how to resolve or to set boundaries would be just to sit together and have an open discussion on, look, this is what I believe the responsibilities of a business analyst are. This is the experience I am bringing in and things I would like to do. And then what about you? And then the other person can have their chance and then see, like, are you overlapping? Are you clashing? Or maybe you're perfectly set to go and you can go and run. Um, so open communication. That's what I
Yeah,
would say. But
yeah.
try to understand, like, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like something we can definitely implement. Just make a conversation. Yeah, and I think that it will be my last question, but not
Mhm.
least, it's my favorite question. Imagine that you have a magic wand, and
Mhm.
if you could cast a spell that allow you to provide education on a specific topic to all 12 years olds in the world, what would
Mhm.
it be? What would you want them to learn?
Okay. Um, am I allowed to say three things? There are a few things I would love for people to learn. Probably the first thing I would like for 12-year-olds to learn is to take care of themselves, like know and understand what are their needs and what values they have and behaviors, and then being able to talk about that openly. Um, so that would be probably one thing. Second thing would be how to verify information you read on the internet. I feel like that is a very useful skill that should be taught right now. And the third one, how to think more of an ecosystem than your own ego, and how to collaborate together. Because if you combine all those three things that I just mentioned, like, I feel the world could be a better place, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, we have to count on the new generation and young people who can change the world for the better. Yes,
Exactly.
so yeah. Sandra, thank you very much for your time, and it's been a pleasure to talk to you. And you guys, thank you everyone who was watching us and listening to us. All the best. And if you'd like to listen to another episode of Disruption Talks, please follow our Spotify and Apple podcasts. So thank you one more time, and it was really pleasure to talk to you.
And likewise, thank you for having me. And in case there were some questions that you didn't get answers to, but you are curious of my opinion, just feel free to reach out to me through LinkedIn. I will be happy to share more. But thank you so much, Sabina, for hosting this amazing talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you.